Hello all, my name is Maddie Moore, and I am a current university student and a future teacher. I did some research about mental health in schools and what we can be doing about it. So in this video I'm going to provide a short discussion of mental health in teens, followed by advice and ideas from current schools and professionals who are implementing mental health programming right now. This video will briefly mention possibly sensitive topics for some people, so all viewers please be advised before continuing. Nothing graphic will be discussed, and most of the topics are about responses to mental health rather than discussing mental health itself. So with that, let's go ahead and begin. In our classrooms, it's important that we are meeting the needs of our students in accordance with their unique identities. I think we all know this. But one thing we don't think about is that just like appearance, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, spirituality, mental health and the mental health of our students is an important part of who they are. Students with a poor mental health are often misunderstood and misrepresented. In mainstream media like TV and movies, those with poor mental health are often presented as inherently violent and evil beyond repair, and this is only making the stigma worse. And because of the stigma, many students are not able to get the help they need, which can lead to heartbreaking circumstances, ranging from further difficulties in school to actual death. Suicide is actually the second leading cause of death in the US as of 2018 for 10 to 24-year-olds. It is for these reasons that it is so important that teachers and other school leaders are taking mental health seriously in the school setting. There seems to be two main areas through which schools are currently implementing mental health programming, through school-wide initiatives and through individual teacher lesson plans. School psychologist John E. Desrochers describes what he perceives as the perfect elements for a school-wide mental health program. In general, his system is done in accordance with good lesson planning, and the following things are what he thinks should be incorporated. Clear goals, which is much like the objectives we do in lesson planning, evidence and research to back up the plan, culturally sensitive implementations, and often getting the parents involved will help with being culturally sensitive. There should be consistency across the entire school, and the mental health programming should be of equal importance to other subjects learned in school, and this is shown through sufficient time and resources given to this topic. He also describes a three-tier approach where all students can be noticed and supported when needed. Tier 3 includes all students and involves students learning skills like coping with adversity, solving problems, and communicating feelings. And then, if needed, students can be entered into Tier 2, which involves things like group counseling for those with mild mental health concerns and things like that, and it can be dependent on their need and situation. Tier 3 is for students at high levels of risk, and this often will involve one-on-one counseling or meeting with a school psychologist, and at this point, often the school will or the plan would be that the school would meet with the parents or guardians of the student. Within this framework, the idea would be that teachers are equipped with a tool that's necessary for them to observe and evaluate the mental health of students without bias. That way they can be placed into one of the three tiers based on their needs. And the teacher themselves wouldn't be putting their bias onto the student, so everyone has equal help and everything like that. Desrochers suggests using psychological evaluations for this tool, such as those listed. Every student would have the chance to express their current mental state through these, and the mental health cases that would usually go unnoticed, such as for quiet students, can be heard through this way. So beyond school-wide initiatives, there are a couple of ideas that were given in my research that I thought were pretty cool, and these ideas are coming from students who experienced mental health concerns while they were in middle school and high school. So first off, Jordan Wells is a student at Boston Latin University. She suggests that the school set aside just a few moments every day for mental health check-ins, and she sees this as very vital. For instance, she gives one example that guidance counselors could use a written mental health check-in while meeting with students, and then at the end of the mental health check-in, there could be a question where students check whether or not they want to discuss that with the guidance counselor. She also mentions something called the zones of regulation, and this is a method that uses 4 different colors representing different emotional states. And she said that simplifying emotions into four different categories based on color through observable actions, teachers and students can be better equipped to understand their own mental state and see trends. And that helps to know when students are needing help. Another person who gave a TED Talk, her name is Haley Hardcastle. She's a current student at the University of Oregon. She did something really cool last year in 2019. She actually worked with a group of students to change Oregon legislation in order to aid students in schools. So what she did is she advocated for students to be allowed a certain number of mental health days off of school with parent consent, just like they are allowed physical health days. So a parent could call in and just say, my student's taking a mental health day, and that would count equally as valid in the attendance as a physical health day. She says that this helps to remove the stigma of mental health because students can just receive a few days off when they need to, and they don't have to explain or anything like that. And she also said it's a good idea because guidance counselors or school psychologists can be checking when students are taking days off and how many, and they can reach out to students who have a lot of mental health days and check in on them. She's currently working to get similar legislation and initiatives in other states across the country. So I've talked about a few school-wide implementation programs and also a couple of ideas from students themselves in schools. Let's talk about something a little bit more specific to teachers now. So one of the best resources for mental health lessons that I found was at a website called lifeisthefuture.com. The guy who runs this website, his name is Scott Todnam. He is a middle school health teacher, and he is pretty well known for leading students through fun and engaging lessons. He often uses metaphors and games to provide a space for deeper reflection about health concepts. He tackles both physical and mental health in his class, and his website is super useful. It contains written lesson plans and also video examples of doing them in his own classroom. So one lesson that I watched was super cool. It was called tennis ball toss or something like that. And pretty much he used a tennis ball. He started by asking students to toss the tennis ball back and forth to each other. And he went through the importance of teamwork, the importance of saying each other's names and validating people through that way, and also how larger risk is also a larger reward. He goes on then and he asks students to pop the tennis ball with scissors. And he asks them, would you do it if I told you to? And of course the students agree they would pretty much do anything because they love him, clearly, in these videos. But he stops them just before they're about to hurt themselves by stabbing scissors into a tennis ball. And he talks to them about how we often do things that we know aren't good for ourselves or for others just because a person of authority or our peers told us to. And how we also tell each other what to do on social media and also in person. And how this can be harmful. He then pops the ball himself and shows that the ball is so resilient that even though it has been permanently affected by one of his actions, it still bounces on the ground. It still bounces back up and is resilient. Later in the lesson, he brings out a bowling ball and describes that bowling balls are resilient in their own way, but they can also cause a lot of destruction to others. So if a bowling ball was dropped on the ground, the concrete under the classroom floor might be dented, but it would be hard to tell on the surface because the carpet conceals it. He talks with students about how when people are hurt, it doesn't always show on the outside. You can actually be hurt internally, too. And then following this activity, he provides time for student discussion and processing about the analogies he made. His other lessons are similar and can often involve game show sessions or team-building activities, and they always lead to student discussions that are very deep and thorough. Again, his website is lifeisthefuture.com. He's a great resource for general teaching inspiration and also health lesson plans for physical and mental health. My hope is that through the spread of ideas in videos like this about mental health legislation and school-wide initiatives and lesson planning, that we can all be a little bit more prepared to tackle mental health in our own schools. So take any of these ideas you would like to, do some research on your own, and don't forget to take a moment to do a mental health check-in for yourself today if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. Have a super day. Bye-bye.